Hey guys, Yuru here, and I just kind of wanted to make a video today, a little bit on the state of the Fury Warrior here at the beginning of the Shadowlands expansion. Anyone who's been playing Fury and keeps up with it regularly has known that it has been underperforming, to say the least, since well into beta, and most of that is due to the borrowed powers that got taken away. Towards the end of BFA, they were very, very reliant on borrowed powers, and it made them extremely strong. So when those went away and they got replaced with what we have going on now with these legendaries and conduits and such, Fury kind of got left behind. Now I've been raiding. Well, it's been about 2 weeks now. I think we're in a second week of raiding, and I've been parsing fairly high for Fury Warriors. I mean extremely high. So I started looking at the numbers, and I'm like, man, I'm in some of these fights. I was in the top 200 in the world, and usually I'm not that high at all. And I thought it was my item level. It is a little higher than most, but it's, So let me see how many people I'm going up against here. And then I was extremely surprised to find out that almost 3 times as many people are playing Arms Warrior while raiding in Castle Nathria, and that just threw me off. I mean, usually Arms and Fury are pretty even as far as PvE goes at the beginning of every expansion, but this just blew me away because there's just so many more people playing Arms, and I was very confused why. So I started looking at some of the numbers here, and let me see if I can pull this up for you guys. Where is it? There we go. Hold on. There we go. Right here. So I started looking at the Warcraft logs here, and as I'm scrolling down, I had to go all the way down here. Look at this. This is the Fury Warrior, second to last, just barely tickling out the Frost Mage as far as a score for rating goes. And if I could pull this drop down a little bit more, you'd see a Protection Paladin. So Fury Warrior right now in heroic rating is just barely above the tanks. I mean, the tanks are around here, around 40s, but still, you get the point. It almost seems as not even competitive. And Arms is still here in the lower middle, which is where I would expect it to be. But normally, as a Fury Warrior, we're used to being somewhere up here. Top 5, almost always. And, I'm not too worried about it. A little worried, but not too worried, because I know as we get better gear, we scale with gear. Everyone's heard that a million times. You're going to see this start to go up a bit. But this number here, this is after the recent 5% buff to damage that they just gave to Fury Warriors. This is after that. This is a survival hunter right here. A melee hunter is 4 spots ahead of the Fury Warrior. So that is an absolute problem. So what can you do about this? The way I see it is there's probably 3 things you can do about this. You can, first thing you can do, you can go on the forums like many people do and just, bitch and complain and cry poverty and say, wah, everyone's better than us. Blizzard, fix this now. But that's not going to get you anywhere. It's not going to make your DPS go higher. You could re-roll the flavor of the month. You could look at this very chart and say, wow, man, Unholy Death Knights. Look at what they're doing. Let me just go ahead and roll a Death Knight really quick. Leveling's very easy this expansion. I can catch up on my Covenant, all that other stuff, and roll an Unholy Death Knight or a Balanced Druid, somewhere up top. You could do that. But then everything you just did for the last, month now is going to be all for naught. I got my tier 3 legendary legs on my Fury Warrior. I don't want to just, give that up to change specs. Blizzard made it extremely difficult to change specs. So for me, that's out of the question. Or you could just make the best out of a bad situation, which is what we're going to be focusing on today in this video. I'm going to try to make it as quick as I can, but I'm just going to point out some things that you can do to get your Fury Warrior in, top shape and do the most DPS you possibly can in your raid. I mean, this looks bleak right here, but to be honest, on some fights, Fury Warrior can damn near top the charts if you do it right, if you're set up right. And that's what we're going to try to go over today. So here we go. Alright guys, now the first little tip I can give you to make your life as a Fury Warrior a little bit easier, I'm just going to give you a couple of real simple macros that I use. Real quick macros. Obviously, if you can just Google Fury Warrior, you know, macros, Shadowlands, whatever, you can come to a bunch of websites that are going to give you a ton of macros, a ton of useful macros, much more than what I'm going to give you here. I'll just give you a few of what I use, but I find these to be pretty mandatory. Now this one here, I don't know if you guys will be able to see it. You should be able to. This is my cooldown macro right here. This pairs Recklessness with my trinkets. So what you want to do is hashtag show tooltip Recklessness. That's just going to see as if I mouse over or if you mouse over, it's going to show your Recklessness tooltip, which is fine. But then you want to go on the next line /use Recklessness. That's actually going to use Recklessness, and since that is not on the global cooldown, you can pair it with another spell, which is going to be our trinkets. So to use your trinkets, on the next line you just put /use 13, underneath that /use 14. And that's just going to use, you know, whatever on-use trinket you have, and this is slot 13, this is slot 14. Right now you can see I have 2 on-use trinkets. You don't really want to do that because you cannot use both of them at the same time. So I would just recommend using your strongest on-use trinket and pair it with another. You know, I have this lower item level one here, which is kind of why I'm not using it. But yeah, just a heads up, if you use 2 trinkets that are both on use, it's only going to use the first one that it can, and that's it. You're gonna have a 20-second cooldown for your other one, so you don't want to do that. So that is my cooldown, my burst macro right there. This macro here has saved my life more times than anything. This is a Mouseover Intervene macro, and as a warrior, as you all know, you're gonna find yourself in this, you know, sometimes you're gonna be in a bad spot where you need to run out or run away from a boss, and you might do it a little bit too late. And, you know, if Heroic Leap is on cooldown, you're kind of screwed. So this is where Intervene comes into play. And the reason I made it a mouse over is so that you don't have to, you know, physically go ahead and target someone to use it. You can just mouse over them, hit this macro, and it's going to intervene you out of harm's way. So it's just /use. Then you could, I'll put this all, hopefully you guys can see it. I'll put this all in the description below. So you can just, you know, copy and paste it. But help at Mouseover, and then the name of the spell, which is Intervene. Then there's another one. Where is it? This one's kind of important right here. This is my Bladestorm. So this is just more, you know, you're going to be changing talents quite often, and we'll get into that later. But this one here just pretty much changes the tooltip from Bladestorm to Dragon Roar. So whichever one you have talented, it will show up in the tooltip. Not super important, but, you know, if you want to, you know, just be real clean with it, you can do this, you know, hashtag show tooltip /cast talent, you know, 6/2 Dragon Roar. And like I said, I'll put this all down in the comment below. But I'm looking for one that is actually a cancelaura. Cancelaura 2 Bladestorm. Oh man, here it is. Sorry, it's my Pummel. So this one is actually very important as well. As you all know, when you're Bladestorming, once you hit that button, that's it. You're Bladestorming for the full 5 hits, the full duration. Sometimes you might have to cancel that to either interrupt a boss or to even break it and, you know, heroic leap out of a bad situation. So to do that, you can just make a Pummel macro here. So it's hashtag show tooltip Pummel. Then you want to put under that /cancelaura and then Bladestorm. What that's going to do is it's going to stop your Bladestorm. So I actually have Dragon's Roar talented right now, but and then /cast Pummel. So even if you're not in melee range to pummel someone, you can still hit your Pummel and it will cancel your Bladestorm no matter where you are. You could just be Bladestorming out in the open and you want to cancel it, you just hit this Pummel and it will cancel your Bladestorm and you can run off. So that's pretty much the main macros that you know, you can use. These are all PvP ones here, you don't need those. But yeah, that's it for macros. Next we'll get into talents and how talents work per boss. Alright guys, so the next thing I just wanted to touch on really quickly are your talents. Now you want to get yourself real familiar with this item right here, this Tome of the Still Mind. I usually bring enough, minimum, one for each boss in a raid. And I don't think there's ever been a boss where I have not changed my talents in between. And you might not think, you know, some of you might not think this is super important, but it actually can make the difference in, you know, being in the 60th percentile on a parse, or being in the up in the orange 95th percentile on the parse. Could be as simple as one talent change. Now, you could check out sites like, I go to Icy Veins a lot. They have a whole guide. I'm sure Wowhead does too, but they have a whole guide on each boss as a Fury Warrior and which talents they recommend. And I usually stick to that, and it has worked out very well for me so far. And most of the time, all of these stay the same. Sudden Death, Double Time, Massacre, War Paint, and Cruelty, those are almost 100% of the time, at least in cancelaura, never going to change. These bottom two rows here, every fight, you're going to change at least one. Most of the time it's Dragon Roar and Bladestorm. And then there's other times where it's Anger Management and Siegebreaker. On most of the single target fights, they recommend you go with Dragon Roar, and I usually do that just because of the shorter 30-second cooldown. You can use it on a regular rotation. It's kind of a filler during the times where Condemn is not active. But the bigger one here is Anger Management and Siegebreaker. It's going to be either one of these two. And there was a time where I did first boss there. I'm going blank. First boss in cancelaura, the big old bat dude, Shriekwing. I took Anger Management. I said, oh, this is a single target fight. You know, I'm going to take Anger Management. That I don't really need Siegebreaker. I have my legendary that applies Siegebreaker. I'll be fine. So I did it as with Anger Management and Dragon Roar, just like we're set up here, only with Anger Management. Next time around, I went to a couple websites, did some research. I said, oh, okay, you know what? They're recommending that I use Siegebreaker, and the reason being because it is, although it's a single target fight, most of your time in that fight is spent away from the boss, dodging mechanics. You're not really spending enough rage for Anger Management to be worth it. And I didn't think about that at first, but it ended up being about an 800 DPS difference once I switched to Siegebreaker, which is a very, very big difference in DPS. It might not sound like a lot, but when you're only doing, you know, under 4k DPS, 800 is almost, you know, over 30% increase in damage. So it's just little things like that with your talents that you want to take note of. Follow all the guides you can online. None of us are experts, but those guys are. Trust them, you know, try what they tell you and see how it works for you. But, you know, that's one of the bigger recommendations I can give, is don't be afraid to change your talents. Don't be afraid to bring 20 of these things, even though they're pretty expensive right now, but get some from your guildies. But that's it for talents. Not too much there besides the obvious. Alright guys, and the next thing I'm going to go over here are add-ons. I'm actually just going to go over one add-on in particular. I'm not going to get too deep into an add-on video here, but if there was ever an add-on that is required and mandatory to play this game well and to elevate your game, it is WeakAuras. So I'll put a link down below. You know, I'm sure most of you watching this probably use WeakAuras, but I will give you a link below to this gentleman here, Luxthos's WeakAuras. This man has put a lot of work into this, and it has made life significantly easier for every class, not just warrior, but he has, you know, very good warrior WeakAuras. And I'm just going to give you a little quick demonstration on how a WeakAura works. So as you can see now, there's nothing on my screen, but once I go into combat, this WeakAura that he made, and all you got to do is import it, is going to activate. And what it's going to do is it's going to light up the recommended next spell in your rotation. 95% of the time you're going to follow that rotation anyway. This kind of just reminds you and lets you know when things come off cooldown and it's able to use. So I'll show you here. So I charge it, there it is, so it all pops up. Bloodthirst. It's not telling me the order to use them, but the ones that are lit up kind of a recommendation. So you can rotation. And you know, you're not going to really forget it. Whenever execute comes up, you're going to know. You give the rampage, execute. Bloodthirst. There you go. Rampage. Excellent. It tracks your Pummel cooldowns, your Door Shadows, everything. Any of your talents, as you change them, they're going to show up there, and it's going to be extremely easier for you to do damage. I once again, look down in the comments below, because I'm not going to put any overlays on this video about that or anything like that. It's going to take too long. And just import those WeakAuras. If you don't know how to use WeakAuras, I'm sorry, I'm not going to help you with that either. Just look up another YouTube video. They'll guarantee to find 1 million of them on WeakAuras. So put that in there, and just use that to help you with your rotation. Look up, go to Wowhead, read Fury Warrior Guides. Go to Icy Veins, read Fury Warrior Guides. The only other, main advice I can give you to help boost your DPS, obviously you're going to be you're going to have, if you have the Venthyr Covenant, which you should, by the way, that's going to give you significant DPS boost as Fury. You don't want to be Bastion. But your Condemn is your main attack. So what you want to do with Condemn is, if you have multiple targets up here, and I might even be able to sneak in, actually yeah, I'll put in a clip of the Huntsman fight. That's a good example of this. You always want to be attacking the target that is either above 80% health or below 20% health. That way you can cleave your Condemn. It's going to do you no good if you're fighting Huntsman and his pet. Huntsman's at 50 HP, his pet is at 90. If you're attacking Huntsman, you are not going to have your Condemn, because it only works obviously above 80 or below 20. If you tab target to the pet who's at 90, you can cleave the Condemn on both targets. So it's just small things like that. You really gotta, research, know your spells, know the class very well, and you can actually do well as Fury. I haven't done bad. This is the best I've ever done as Fury, and from everything I'm reading, it's in its worst state. I'm parsing in the high 90s. Every fight is either orange or pink, and it's just, and I'm not doing hardly anything different than I have in the past. So it's just read up, know your class, know your rotation, get the right add-ons, get this WeakAura installed, come to the raid prepared. Let's see here, that's another thing I can really quickly go over. Whoops, not that. So these are the recommended enchants. I don't have my chest I just got this chest last night, but there's also a chest enchant you can do. Right now there's not too much for enchants. The weapons are kind of important: Celestial Guidance, Sin for Revelation. That's for single target, which is where we struggle, so you want to boost that. Get some haste, stack as much haste as you can, even though it diminishes. I don't really have much, I only have 15%. I think they recommend around 20 or so. But I'll get there eventually. Put the strength in your gloves, put the eternal stats in your chest. Come prepared. Your potions are going to be Potion of Phantom Fire. That's the one I use, and it does very, very well. And another thing that a lot of people are forgetting right now are your oils, your weapon oils. So right here, Shadow Core Oil. You want to put this and keep this up on your weapon throughout the raid. It lasts for an hour, one on each weapon. It lasts through death. They're really not, you put them on, you forget about them. And then your flask, obviously Spectral Flask of Power, that's for all DPS in the game. So, I mean, although things look very bleak right now, you guys, we've all been through this before. We go through it almost every expansion. We suck at the beginning. Maybe not this bad, but we suck at the beginning. So just kind of hang in there, do these little things that I told you about in this video, very small minor things to keep yourself at least competitive. Gear is also very important. Even if that's one last thing. I know I keep adding these to this video, but this is one last thing. Even if you're not a PvPer, do yourself a favor, go here, pre-made groups, arenas, find a group, or even make a group. What I usually do is I just start one and I just type something like, I'm just here for conquest. You'd be surprised how many people are doing the same as you. They don't care about getting, gladiator, rank 1 or none of that. I list this group and it's going to start to fill up. Just take a decent comp, get in there and get some conquest, because that is what got me I got a couple of pieces. This right here, I got this item level 200 cloak. And I believe, I don't know, I got something else here. Can't remember what it was. But regardless, your item level and your gear is everything. And that is what got me, you know, to an item level above 200 in a very short amount of time, which is kind of the only thing keeping me competitive with all the casters in my guild. So that's another thing. Just do whatever you can to keep your gear ahead of everyone else's. Do the PvP, even if you hate it. Even if you die, even if you lose 90% of your arenas, just get in there and do it. Kill your world bosses every week. There's a chance at loot there. And do your weekly quests in the mall. There's also a chance for, I think, a 183 item level in there. So, I don't know. I'm all burnt out. My throat is dry. I need to drink some beer. Hopefully this wasn't, you know, all over the place. This is the first time I actually really ever tried to do a video kind of like this to help people out, but hopefully it did help somebody out there. And yeah, if you could subscribe, you know, like everyone says in every video, it does help. Like the video, that also helps. Also, I stream on Twitch. I'll put the link in the bio. I get like 1 viewer a night, so if you can help me out there, you know, I'd appreciate it. I'm usually on around 9 p.m. at night Eastern time. But alright guys, well, hopefully we get better. Hopefully Blizzard gives us another buff in the very near future. If not, we'll have to deal with it. Don't go crying on the forums. Have a good night.